Hi there, I'm Dan Jones. Welcome to interCHANGE. Thank you so much for joining us. Hey, lots of interesting things to talk about today. A shocker from Sweden Friday morning. Barack Obama is named the winner of the Nobel Peace Prize. Milwaukee County Board Chairman Lee Holloway compares Scott Walker to former KKK leader and presidential candidate David Duke. We'll hear from Scott Walker and David Duke. A UWM professor blasts his own school for the reasons it's been giving to create a new School of Engineering campus and a School of Freshwater Sciences. And we'll talk about the sentence given to some central Wisconsin parents whose daughter died because they thought they could pray her to good health. All right, joining me tonight are Joel McNally, newspaper columnist, and the host of the Morning Magazine program over on AM 1290. Kevin Fisher, aide to Republican State Senator Mary Lozick, and oftentimes WISN radio host. And State Senator Lena Taylor, a Democrat from Milwaukee. Rick Horowitz, along with commentary at the end of the show. All right, so the Nobel Committee announces today that it's going to give Barack Obama the Nobel Peace Prize for, quote, creating a new climate in international politics, end of quote. And apparently for all the other great things he's done in the 37 weeks he's been president. This is like canonizing a priest, Kevin, 2 weeks after he graduates from the seminary. It really is, and it is a shocker. That's, I think, the adjective you used in your open. No one in the world saw it coming, no one in the White House. Clearly, the International Committee awarded this to the president, not on achievements, but on campaign rhetoric and the potential for what he can possibly do in his tenure in office. This is the third time a sitting president has gotten the award. Woodrow Wilson got it for founding the League of Nations and being heavily involved in the Treaty of Versailles. Another president, Teddy Roosevelt, helped end the Russo-Japanese War. I'm not sure that in his short amount of time that Barack Obama can say he has even made achievements like that. Ardent supporters of the president say you have to be fair to him. He hasn't been in office long enough to criticize him for the problems that he has inherited and that he is now facing. Well, I can turn that around and say it's too early to bestow an award of this prestige upon this president. Now, having said that, he does have the biggest platform in the world. He can now use this award and that platform to put that award to good use and I think come out strong about positions on Afghanistan, which he has not. We talked about that last week, that he's been hemming and hawing. He has to make a strong commitment. He has to make a strong commitment, and he can do that now in the days ahead with the publicity he'll get, to come out strong about what to do in Afghanistan, to go after the Taliban, to go after al-Qaeda, and to go after terrorism, and to make sure that he's on that platform. And then I think he can maybe do some good with this award. Lena, some people, even his supporters, are saying today he should have declined it and said, I don't deserve this yet. Let me keep working.
You know, I guess, you know, Kevin and others, Lena. I think that, the first thing that the president basically said was he was humbled. Mm-hmm. And, and many individuals were shocked. I assume that the committee that made the selection had a standard that they chose. And although, Kevin, you go to speak to say, well, he needs more time to be able to accomplish things, clearly he set a pattern that has shown that he has changed the climate for America and America's relationships with others and the perception of what people have. As a person who wasn't in politics when I first ran, I remember people saying, oh, who are you and where do you come from? I remember when I was only a state representative for 18 months, people told me, oh, you're just way too quick. You can't do it. I remember when I got chosen for finance that people said, oh, she doesn't have the skills and she's not ready. So I hear you saying that. But, clearly, President Obama has come in, and President Obama has been able to do some very effective things rapidly. He has a desire to make sure that we address many of the issues that are plaguing our country. And most importantly, he has taken the international relationships that we had that were torn down by former President Bush and his administration, where we lost major respect. And he, in a short amount of time, has begun to turn that around. Well, I'm not sure. That within itself has definitely made the committee say that he is, that as well as other things have made the committee say but he has put out this roadmap of hope and what he can do. Well, I let you finish. I'm sorry I wasn't able to. So that committee has said that they believe that he is a person who deserves the Nobel Peace Prize. I think the committee based this award
not on what he has done or what he has achieved, because it's minimal what he's done thus far. I think sending more troops into Central Asia is the only plus I can put in his win column.
Why do you have to?
But I think you don't even know what their criteria is.
I think it's really sad
what
they want
that you
him to
are
do.
Disrespecting a committee,
no.
and that you are disrespecting a process that I don't think I've ever heard you say one time when they've nominated someone before that you haven't agreed with what they've done. I think it's just because you don't like President Obama.
This committee gave it to Arafat. This committee gave it to Perez. This committee did not give it to Gandhi when he was nominated 5 times. I believe that the committee didn't award President Obama based on what he did, but what they want him to do, which he has a chance to do a lot.
Is it a repudiation of everything that George Bush stood for?
Very much so.
Oh, softball.
Well, you know, you don't have to sit over there and say what you think or believe about the committee. Why don't you listen to what they said? Why don't you listen to what they said in the citation? They, in fact, made a key point that they weren't honoring him for what he might do. They weren't honoring him for the potential of all the great things that he could do. They said they were honoring him for what he has done. The difference that one man has made. One man has made.
37 weeks doesn't mean you can't do it.
Listen, it's very significant that just by taking office, he changed the attitude of the rest of the world towards this country. He went from a unilateral, we don't care what the rest of the world thinks, to multilateral, we're going to work together and actually talk to other nations, talk to other nations, including our friends, as well as our enemies. While George Bush, it was just the back of the hand. By just taking office, we now have a president who has quit, actually professing ignorance of climate change and pretending that there's some phony quack science that says, global warming doesn't exist, and is joining the rest of the world to commit the United States to this problem. He has also inspired in this country, just like a previous Nobel Peace Prize winner, Martin Luther King, all the people of color in this country who now see new possibilities, see more opportunities opening that were never opened to any person of color in this country before.
He's inspired
and around the world. And around the world, people are inspired. It is. They said very clearly, that in fact this man, has the ideals that the Nobel Peace Prize were created for, and you don't have to. It has really shocked me today, hearing this kind of bitterness and ugliness coming out of the Republicans. What happened to pride in your country? What happened to pride in the achievements of your country? The same people who were cheering because we didn't get the Olympics, because Barack Obama wanted the Olympics in Chicago, which would have been a great economic thing for the Midwest, for Wisconsin. Those people who were very happy because he lost something now are very upset because he's won one of the greatest awards, worldwide.
I'm not upset. I just don't think he's deserving.
Why not be proud of that?
One thing that you touched on, Joel, that I think is another important issue. His mere winning the election is also a very just awesome event that happened in our country, a country that has been very racially divided.
You're right, and that's the only thing he has been able to do is win elections.
The piece that I think that is really wonderful about that is that he did it not only in this land, but then based on his efforts, many of the things that Joel has outlined, many of the things that the committee has outlined, his efforts, it has changed the way that we are thought of internationally. That within itself is really what the Nobel Peace Prize is all about.
You can't name one thing he's done for international peace that makes him deserving of this award, and you just had 10 minutes to do it.
All right, next topic. Because he apparently can't stand Scott Walker and because he doesn't like Walker's budget proposals, County Board Chairman Lee Holloway this week compared Scott Walker to former KKK member and presidential candidate David Duke. Walker, of course, said, well, that's absolutely ridiculous, and then reminded people that it was way back in 1992 when Walker helped lead the effort to keep David Duke off the Republican presidential primary ballot here in Wisconsin. That was 17 years ago and was right here in this MPTV studio.
I have a right to run as a Republican, and the law is very specific. It says a nationally recognized candidate. I am certainly that. I'm better known than almost any Democratic candidate who will be in the ballot. Certainly I should have a right to run as a Republican.
David Duke, what are you known for?
I'm an elected representative of the state of Louisiana.
But let me ask you in the national sense, what are you known for?
I'm known for my political viewpoint. Same as Jesse Jackson was known on the Democratic side for liberalism. Same as Patrick Buchanan is known for his strong conservative viewpoint.
Representative Duke, that's where we would differ, though. Your viewpoints may or not be legitimate. We feel in particular that you're hiding behind some of the legitimate interests of the working class Americans, issues as far as welfare reform, as far as job protection, job security, issues that are important particularly here in this district, in this part of Milwaukee.
Well, why is it that I was...
Let me finish, Representative Duke, if you will, please. The key, though, is we feel that in particular you're hiding behind these issues that are legitimate issues, but do not necessarily make you a legitimate candidate any more than in the city of Milwaukee. If Jeffrey Dahmer were to stand up and talk about family values,
what he talks about, though, are Republican issues, the same issues that you talk about.
The voters have a right. The voters have a right, whether my issues are legitimate or not, and whether I'm legitimate or not, and talk about hiding behind issues. I was the first. I want to remind you that I was the first Republican candidate in this country that used affirmative action as a political campaign issue. I'm the first one that had the guts to do that. I'm the first one that talked openly about the illegitimate welfare birth rate, the need to have workfare instead of welfare, and used it as campaign issues. Since that time, other Republicans have adopted those issues. I've really forced a change in the Republican Party, and more Republicans across the country are using those issues successfully, and that's certainly in no small part due to my efforts.
Scott, the things that David Duke talks about are the same things that David Prosser, the minority assembly leader, is talking about, the same things that Governor Thompson is talking about with workfare. So what is the difference between those Republicans and David Duke as a Republican?
Sure. Certainly here again, the distinction we're making is not one of saying that his issues are extreme. They certainly are not on certain issues that we're discussing here. The subject is, and where we wish to make a moral judgment, and whether you agree with it or not is certainly up to our viewers and up to the people of the state of Wisconsin. But we're making a moral judgment, one based upon his background, which we alluded to at the beginning, which goes far beyond the specific issues that he is using for the political opportunity to gain success in this particular election.
All right, that's an interesting show. You can catch the entire program if you want. We have the video pretty prominently displayed on our webpage at mptv.org. Lena, is Lee Holloway, was it racist for him to even say something like that?
You know, the first thing I have to say is I've been busy working on OWI and so on and so forth. So until you mentioned it today, I didn't even know what had happened. I don't even remember this interview. So
you were just a child when that interview was.
So clearly, you know, I'm not exactly certain what the chairman said, but you know, I think the piece that's most important, you know, at this point is that we work on a county budget that's going to be appropriate, that they work together. So you'll have to kind of fill me in, and I guess I'll have an opportunity.
We'll fill you in. Sit back, Lena. You know? Just sit back.
Is Holloway racist even to say something like that?
I wouldn't call it racist. It was a stupid remark. It was a stupid remark, and it was ridiculous. It was what he said was, David Duke is good-looking and smooth-talking, and so is Scott Walker. Therefore, you know, Scott Walker is like David Duke. I mean, and you know, a case could be made that extreme conservative politics, you know, hurts the poor the most, hurts people of color the most, and you can make that connection. But Lee Holloway didn't even try to make that connection. It's just like, I don't like Scott Walker, and I'm going to think of the worst thing I can say about him, and I'll compare him to David Duke. It was uncalled for. It was stupid. The thing about that interview you showed, it did remind me that the opposition to affirmative action started out with its roots in racism and David Duke. And actually, the point on the show is well taken. Republicans adopted many of those extreme positions, and I've always been sorry about that. There was a time when the Republican Party, the party of Lincoln, stood for equality, stood for equal rights, and they've in fact adopted many of David Duke's positions.
You know,
yeah,
Walker
we're just
made it
bad
very
guys
clear,
over here.
Walker made it very clear, though, that Duke was trying to hide behind those Republican issues.
He copped, you know, those issues, and it was ridiculous. I'm not sure that I don't like the race card being played, and I don't play the race card. I think there's been this friction, if you will, this political friction, and that dates back long before Holloway and Walker, between the county executive's office and the county board chairman's office. It was a very ridiculous remark to make. 3 county supervisors have asked Holloway to apologize. Holloway doesn't take his marching orders from anybody. He's not going to apologize. And Scott Walker has said he's not seeking an apology. They need to move on and work on things like the county budget. But to suggest, and I was there in 1992 covering for WTMJ Radio the Presidential Commission's meeting to decide whether or not to put David Duke on the presidential ballot. My memory fails me. I think they did err on the side of putting him on the ballot as opposed to keeping him off. That's the way election and constitutional scholars usually go. But I remember talking to Michael Ellis, who's on the commission. He was one of the elected people on the commission. And Senator Mike Ellis. And there were Democrats on the commission as well. I said, well, he says, he being David Duke, he says he's a Republican. And Senator Michael Ellis, in his distinct style, gave this insightful retort. Well, so what? And it's true. It's not very analytical. But so what? So he says he's a Republican. That doesn't mean he even stands for one Republican. And it was ridiculous to compare.
Kevin, I'm scared. I actually agree with you. They need to move on. I don't know that I believe that it's a racist comment by Chairman Holloway, but surely they need to move on and take care of the people's business.
That's why I love you so much, Lena.
All right. Next topic. EWM professor Mark Levine released a paper recently that blasted the university for claiming that a new school of freshwater sciences and a new engineering campus out in the county grounds will attract all these new economic benefits to the Milwaukee area. He says the university is exaggerating the benefits of becoming this entrepreneurial university and that the university should just worry about educating students. Joel, I hope very much he has tenure.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
And his parking space.
I feel that he must have. I think Mark Levine is a community asset. He really is. He is an iconoclast. He says the things that no one else will say, and he backs them up with facts. He backs them up with research. He backs them up with history. And everything he puts out is very well researched, but it's not what the politicians want to hear. And he actually, you can tell, he revels in telling truth to power and challenging. A politician is not going to get by with cliches about water is the new oil, and we're going to have a Shangri-La on Lake Michigan here because we happen to be located on the lake. He says, show me where all this industry connected with this fresh water is. Why isn't any of the world's top 40 water companies located around this great asset that you say is going to make us millions of dollars? And there is a lot of just hollow rhetoric and wishful thinking. And what he was basically calling for in part of his report was, how about some good journalism to look into some of these claims that the university makes, that the politicians make? Here's some history and here's some research and data which suggests that this is way overblown. And let's look at some facts. Like I say, I admire Mark Levine very much, and he brings things to the attention in this community that no one else will.
But Lena, isn't part of what UWM is trying to do is to be a more white-collar, research-oriented university, and help Milwaukee become more like a Minneapolis, whereas Levine wants everything in the central city. If it doesn't help the central city, well, he doesn't seem to like it, because he's not complaining about the nursing school that's going to go in the Pabst area, but he doesn't like the thing on the county grounds, and he doesn't like the research thing downtown on the lakefront.
I think Joe really hit it on the head. I mean, for me, Mark Levine has been brilliant. I mean, his research has really addressed issues that are not popular issues. It has made us look at the choices that we've made. We often wonder why the engine of this state is not stronger. He is able to speak directly to, for example, the unemployment rate for African-American men. It was Mark Levine who, continued to talk about this issue and how it plagues our community and the many effects that it has on the city. So when I look at that and I think about all of the other things that he's done, he brings credibility to what he says. So when I listen to him say, UWM is not the end all and be all, it's, this is potentially overblown, I have to step back and say he's basically saying, show me the facts. Show me what it is that you're going to be able to do that's going to, show all of this conversation that we're having to be real. I don't think it's that he's just in love with the central city and he just wants everything to be done in the central city. But I think he's also honest about, if we're going to move this city forward, the people of this community, including those in the central city, have to be able to be employed, have living wage jobs, and we have to make sure that we're including everyone in that process. And if we're not doing that, then we're fooling ourselves.
Kevin, I'm a huge fan of UWM, and I always have been. Isn't the thrust now of what Santiago is doing and his predecessor, Zimfer, haven't they created more excitement about UWM than you've seen in 30 years?
They have, and they've taken an institutional doormat in this state and have made some progress.
It was just an old commuter college. Now it's...
And I have mixed views about the whole Levine, the report and the piece he did in the Sunday Journal last week. I'm wondering if it does a disservice to the community and its efforts. I know he backs up what he says with a lot of research. What did he go back 20 years on this baby? But not all of those years has this community been experiencing an economic juggernaut. Now does it, especially at a time when UWM is the ugly stepchild of the UW system, does this dampen moral and financial support for what the university is trying to do? And of course, you know, he's rattled off some major universities around the country that, according to him, have not generated any economic development. Well, I don't think when you're talking about the engineers of economic development that universities or college campuses are up at the top of the list. Business people, small and large, entrepreneurs, innovators, investors, people who create jobs and get the economy rolling. Those are the people you look for. You don't instantly say, well, gee, how can we get our economy back on the road to success? We need UWM to be more successful. I don't think people generally go with that approach. But I just hope that we don't put too much stock in this, even though he did a lot of research, because here we're trying to build and shape UWM for the future. This just kind of throws cold water over everything that people have been trying to do.
All right, you know, we got to talk for just a few minutes about these kind of whacked out religious nut job parents in central Wisconsin whose 11-year-old daughter died from complications of diabetes. They wouldn't get her any medical care. They thought they could just pray her to good health. Oh. Well, guess what the sentence was this week? The judge gave them 6 months in jail. Joel, what kind of a message does it possibly send? You know, well, you can walk into a bar. What did Plaxico Burress get? You know, he got 2 years because he shot himself by mistake.
Well, don't try to compare different sentences where all sentences may be unjust as far as that goes. I don't think giving these parents a long prison term would do much to educate them or change, you know, their outlet. I disagree vehemently with their actions. Having diabetes, I can't even imagine allowing a child to die. It's such a long, slow process. But clearly, the interesting thing about the sentence, it's not just a 6-month sentence. It's 1 month every year for 6 years. Once a year for a month, they're going to go to prison and think about what they did to that child and the consequences of that.
Seems pretty light for the life of a child, though, Joel. Sometimes you have to.
There is no commensurate.
Parent is not going to have their challenge with that their child died. I mean, Kevin, come on. I mean, there's going to be some issues that those parents have just in losing their child. I'm sorry, Joel, but I just Kevin's chime in there. I had to push back because there's no question that, you know, if you lose a child, you're going to suffer through that emotional process. I mean, that woman carried that child. She's going to suffer. I hear you, Dan, and that's one of the reasons why I did the bill, because, you know, faith healing is exempt from prosecution. You know, so there has to be a standard that says there's a certain amount of care, right, that has to be made for the benefit and the protection of children.
And
but I do believe
they did not exhibit.
I don't disagree with clearly in this situation the jury spoke and that's true. But I think the piece that I want to speak to is that I do believe that people should have a right to exercise their faith, but I believe there has to be a standard.
Not when their child is dying right in front of their very eyes.
I believe that there has to be a standard of care where children should be able to be protected, which is one of the reasons why I believe that we need to be able to create that clear line.
Do you feel sorry for these parents at all?
I mean, I feel sorry that they've lost their child. Yes. Do I feel sorry for the child who is gone? Yes. I mean, it doesn't mean that I can't have empathy for individuals who have lost their child. Do I believe that they should have made different choices? Would I have made different choices? Of course I would have.
This wasn't a SIDS case. They enabled their child to die because they were negligent. They didn't lose their child. They were responsible for the death of their child.
All right, we move on. The chairman of the House Ways and Means Committee is one of Washington's most influential players when it comes to tax policy. The current chairman is Congressman Charles Rangel of New York. Rick Horowitz wonders whether it might make more sense to have a chairman who actually pays his taxes. Rick.
Yeah, good afternoon. I got a statement here from Chairman Rangel regarding the recent allegations. Now, the chairman wants to make clear that he genuinely regrets any concerns his actions or when he failed to act may have created in the minds of the public or with his colleagues. As all of you know, he has the deepest respect for the institution and its rules. And when he...
what about the money?
If I can... I'll be getting to that. Chairman Rangel has dedicated his career to serving his constituents in the best way he knows how, and they continue to support him strongly. Now,
Why didn't you report the money?
If I can finish. Now, as you know, there have been questions raised about what specific income the chairman did or didn't report on his financial disclosure forms, and when he did or didn't report it, and what taxes he did or didn't pay on what he did or didn't report. There's a simple explanation for all of this. Well, now, about the municipal bonds.
What's the explanation?
As I said, it's a very simple explanation. Now, with respect to the municipal bonds and the Merrill Lynch account, it can be really hard, as you know, to put a dollar value on those assets.
$500,000?
Well, yeah, I mean, that's certainly one way to value them. And when it comes to reporting those assets, it's
which he didn't do.
Again, there's quite a simple explanation for that. Now, about the fundraising he did for the...
Wait a minute.
What's the explanation?
The fundraising he did for the Rangel Center for Public Service up at City College, and the particular donors who decided to contribute, even though they knew they'd get absolutely no favors on tax matters or anything else from the chairman whatsoever.
There's a simple explanation.
Exactly, yeah.
What you won't tell us.
I didn't say that.
What you won't tell us.
Moving right along, now on the chairman's villa in the Dominican Republic, I think there's a real simple way to describe that, and that would be...
Well, thanks, Rick, and thank you so much for watching. Enjoy the rest of your weekend.